الأمنية الرسمية.
Good afternoon, Sunday, November 16th. I'm Yumna Naufal. These are today's headlines. A new video released by ISIS announces the alleged killing of American hostage Peter Kasek, the brutal beheadings of several Syrian soldiers. March 14 candidates win 3 of 4 vacant seats in the Beirut Bar Association elections. And Ukraine overshadows economic questions at the G20 summit in Australia, which wraps up today. Russian President Vladimir Putin receiving harsh criticism. To begin with ISIS, well, they've released another video online purporting to show members of the group beheading several Syrian soldiers and American aid worker Peter Kasek. The footage shows the beheading of at least 12 people. In the clip, the militants are seen marching at least a dozen prisoners said to be pilots and officers from the Syrian army past a wooden box containing long military knives, each ISIS member taking one as they pass by. They then force the men to kneel in a line and decapitate them. The video also showed a bloodied head on the ground claimed by ISIS to be that of U.S. worker Peter Kasek. He was an aid worker. The White House said the U.S. intelligence community is working to determine the authenticity of the video, which was released through social media accounts which have earlier shared similar videos that were later verified. British Prime Minister David Cameron says there is no doubt that Jihadi John, the British national known as the alleged beheader of James Foley and several others ISIS held hostage on camera, should face justice after reports said the militant was wounded in an airstrike. The Prime Minister also stressed that those traveling to Syria and Iraq to conduct terror operations against British people are putting themselves in harm's way.
There are reports overnight that Jihadi John was wounded in an airstrike. We don't know whether that's right, but would you be happy to see him wounded or killed out there rather than coming back to the UK to face justice? And what sort of message should young people thinking of going to Syria draw from this?
Well, we should be in no doubt that I want Jihadi John to face justice and, you know, for the appalling things, the appalling acts that have been carried out in Syria. But I wouldn't make any comment on individual issues and strikes and the like. You wouldn't expect me to do that. I think the point, though, is clear that if people travel to Syria or Iraq in order to conduct terror operations against British people, British citizens, or people back here in Britain, then they are putting themselves in harm's way. And there shouldn't be any doubt about that.
In Lebanese news today, March 14 coalition candidates have won 3 out of 4 vacant seats at the Beirut Bar Association's by-elections. The newly elected syndicate members are Nadat Al-Hou, Charles Abisab, and Jacques Abu Abdullah from March 14, and Fadi Haddad from March 8 won seats as a syndicate member. They will serve for 3 years on the board. Information Minister Ramzi Jreish praised the democratic process of the election and the Bar Association for respecting legal deadlines and allowing the vote to take place without an extension. Former Lebanon legislator from Tripoli, Misbah al-Ahdab, is announcing that he will be launching anti-government protests in Tripoli. In a news conference held at his home, Ahdab lashed out at the authorities' treatment of Tripoli, accusing them of bringing only violence, bloodshed, destruction and ruin, while encouraging economic hardship in the northern port. Ahdab said that he had decided, along with many of Tripoli's leaders, to hold a series of mass movements against the government, adding that authorities had sowed chaos in the city. Lebanon's Independence Day will be beset by grief this year as 27 military servicemen remain in the captivity of jihadists. The words of Prime Minister Tamam Salam. He said, "We celebrate independence this year with heartbreak because we can't celebrate it without our sons and heroic soldiers." He was speaking to students from the Maqasid schools arriving at his home in Beirut's Mustaiba neighborhood. The celebration is also incomplete because of sorrow due to the confusion we are facing, he said, at all Lebanese institutions, especially with the vacuum of a president. Lebanon celebrates its independence from France on November 22nd. U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel is expressing concern over technologies and arms obtained by Hezbollah while announcing a technological innovation plan to ensure America's military superiority in the 21st century. Speaking at a national defense conference at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation in the U.S., Hagel warned that technologies and weapons that were once the exclusive province of advanced nations have become available to a broad range of militaries and non-state actors, specifically naming Hezbollah as one example. In a memo to the Pentagon leaders outlining the initiative, Hagel said the U.S. must not lose its commanding edge in military technology and that he expects it to propose important changes to how the agency identifies and responds to military challenges. A new storm is hitting Beirut. Electricity has returned, though, after it was knocked out by yesterday's torrential rainfall and thunderstorms. These are the images we have. Several hours of heavy rain flooded roads, causing much damage and many car accidents. At least 2 people died and 12 were injured in road accidents, according to the Traffic Management Center. Both the airport road and the alternative route from the area of Uzai were blocked by floods. The rain also severely disrupted phone and internet services and caused a blackout. Electricité du Liban said many of its power plants were disconnected from the electricity network due to lightning strikes, but that power has now returned to nearly all parts of the country. Rain is expected to carry on throughout the day. And in other news, a sergeant with Lebanese customs security forces has been found dead in the 8th harbor of Beirut's seaport, a day after he disappeared during his shift, prompting a search operation. The officer, Sergeant Ahmed Haidar, was found by the civil defense rescue teams. Reports do not say whether any signs of assault were discovered on his body, however. Maronite Patriarch Rai left the Vatican, where he is set to meet with Pope Francis, according to sources at Beirut's International Airport. Rai's 10-day visit to the Vatican will include meetings with the Papal Council. He'll also visit Milan for the launch of 2 new Maronite churches, and he is set to return to the Vatican afterwards, where he will attend a ceremony held in honor of Lebanon's former president, Michel Sleiman, who will receive a papal medal. Now, can you build peace through film? The Culture Resistance International Film Festival in Lebanon attempts to do just that, showing more than 40 feature films and organizing events across the country. The festival is held in 5 cities across Lebanon, attempting to build a bridge between regional differences within Lebanon by having Beirut, Tyre, Saida, Tripoli, and Zahli all speak the language of cinema. The film festival started on an initiative of Lebanese filmmaker Jocelyn Saab and proposes to question history, war, memory, youth, and women's rights in Lebanon through a series of films from Asia and the Mediterranean.
It's really moving for me to be here to show such a film in Beirut, because I think you would understand what it's like to be oppressed, or what it's like to survive. Whatever happens, you survive, and that's the achievement, to survive and keep going. If you're banned, don't kill yourself. Don't kill the person banning your film, but make another film about your pain. Make another film about the banning of your film, about the people who won't let you speak.
Coming up next, a new version of the Band-Aid charity single created 30 years ago is set to raise money to fight Ebola. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching the 4:20 o'clock news here on Future Television. U.S. President Barack Obama has spoken against Russian aggression in Ukraine, condemning President Vladimir Putin and warning him that Russia will remain isolated from the international community if it continues to violate international law in Ukraine. Speaking at the end of the G20 meeting in Brisbane, Australia, Obama, who has described his meetings with Putin this week as blunt and businesslike, said that he had made it clear Russia would remain isolated if it continued to provide support to separatist rebels. Putin has come under intense pressure from other leaders at this weekend's G20 summit in Brisbane, which brings together the leaders of the world's 20 largest economies over his government's backing for pro-Russian rebels in Ukraine. Australia, the G20 host, had sought to keep the focus on economic issues, but much of the meeting has been overshadowed by Ukraine and also by the issue of climate change, which Turkish Prime Minister Davutoglu said would be on the agenda of the next summit.
Invade other countries or finance proxies and support them in ways that break up a country that has mechanisms for democratic elections. At this point, the sanctions that we have in place are biting plenty good. We retain the capabilities, and we have our teams constantly looking at mechanisms in which to turn up additional pressure as necessary. We have communicated to the Syrian regime that when we operate going after ISIL in their airspace, that they would be well advised not to take us on. But beyond that, there's no expectation that we are going to, in some ways, enter an alliance with Assad. He is not credible in that country. At some point, the people of Syria and the various players involved, as well as the regional players, Turkey, Iran, Assad's patrons like Russia, are going to have to engage in a political conversation.
A prominent female member of Afghanistan's parliament survived an assassination attempt. Now, she was part of parliament and she was on her way to, she was slightly wounded, Shukriya Barkazai. She was on her way to parliament and the bomb hit her vehicle as she was heading there. At least 17 others were injured. 3 are pronounced dead. The attacker was in a car that attempted to ram Barkazai's vehicle. He then detonated explosives, causing a massive blast that was heard across Afghanistan's capital of Kabul. Barkazai is a high-profile advocate of women's rights and media freedom. She has been a member of parliament for 10 years, and her work has been recognized internationally with a number of awards. Bob Geldof, One Direction, Bono, and some 30 other stars gathered in a studio in London to record a 30th anniversary version of the Band Aid charity single, Do They Know It's Christmas Time?, to raise money this time to fight Ebola. Led Zeppelin's Robert Plant, Coldplay's Chris Martin, and Sinead O'Connor were also among the rockers brought together by Geldof to sing the 4th version of Do They Know It's Christmas. Musicians began arriving in the early morning and were expected to record all day and into the night before the single is aired for the first time this evening and then officially released tomorrow. The Ebola outbreak has claimed more than 5,000 lives since last December, according to the World Health Organization, almost all in Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone, while the number of infected cases registered worldwide has soared to more than 14,000. The song became one of the world's biggest selling singles ever after its release in 1984 to raise funds for famine relief in Ethiopia, and this time it's for a new cause. So there'll be a new song just in time for the holidays as we count down the days. On that note, let me remind you of our headlines today. A new video released by ISIS announces the alleged killing of American hostage Peter Kasich and a brutal beheadings of several Syrian soldiers. March 14 candidates win 3 of 4 vacant seats in the Beirut Bar Association elections. And G20 comes to an end, Ukraine overshadowing economic questions in Australia, where Russian President Vladimir Putin received very harsh criticism. Those are your Sunday headlines live on Future Television. I'll be back tomorrow for all the latest. Have a good week ahead. Take care.